Devday conference, the best software conference in Sri Lanka. I'm Johannes Broadwell, and with me I've got Karthaik, who's here to talk about agile smells. So Karthaik, what are agile smells?
Well, you heard my talk, you heard me speak my mind through, right? You wanted me to say the same thing again?
Sure.
Okay, so basically it's about, what I have shared in my talk has been my experience in delivery and consultants and in consulting. So some of the things that hamper the true agility in the product development. So which is what I shared. So some things could be directly on the development practices. There are the cultural bits, there are the process bits. So I tell people, basically the idea is to share a message that it's just not one thing, it's not just process, it's not just the culture, it's not just the technology. I think it's a sum of all these elements that matters most. So I kind of picked up things that kind of go or stops the team or probably pulls the team from blooming to be truly agile, which is what I shared. Yeah.
So what are some of them? Some examples of agile smells?
Yeah, so some of them that can be really done away with is flattening the hierarchy. I mean, hierarchy is basically more noise than the really required thing, because the basics of agility is talking about project is run around motivated individuals. Right. Now you bring in hierarchy. In my experience, I've seen that it is breaking the motivation of individuals. At least their motivation changes from the product thing to their personal, basic climbing up the ladder in the organization and stuff.
So basically they get focused on their fears and hopes rather than what they can
Absolutely,
contribute.
yeah. So yeah, that's one thing.
So with hierarchies, there are different types of hierarchies, right?
Yeah.
If I have a boss, it doesn't necessarily mean that we've got a hierarchy, or does it?
So the way I would like to see it as even in agile, you don't have in none of the agile things you have project manager, for instance. None of the frameworks has defined it, but we still have some of those things in. So the best way to look at it is not as a boss, but look at it as a role. Now, when you look at it as a role, it gives a completely different picture of things. Now, for instance, project manager, required or not, it depends. But then if he's in there, what is his role? He can well play a role of a facilitator. Right. Now, if he's a techie, or if he's already been there, done things at a ground level, he's at a better advantage because he can understand the other person when he shares his pain. So I think looking at each of these things as a role is very important. Whether you are QA, whether you are a dev, whether you are a business analyst, whatever you are in the software field. In a project, when it comes to it's just the role. It's not. I do not wish to see it as hierarchy. They're all on the same plane, just that the roles are different. Looking that way, I think it's a great way to deliver it.
So you're talking about the roles inside of the project,
inside
not the roles
project.
in the organization necessarily.
So yeah, not necessarily, but it's more within the project.
So this is about team. How does the organization play in?
So some of the things that I know of companies, the way they segregate these things are, they have these roles defined, and they have these, they don't call these things as hierarchy, but they call these things as bands. So they just band, B-A-N-D-S. So they just call they have these things as bands. So in some companies they just have like consultants, senior consultants, lead consultants, done with it. So somebody who is a consultant could still be a project manager. Somebody who's a senior consultant could still basically lead the entire team. So this is, they have separated these two things, right? So that works out well. I think I just want to move in that direction. Sharing from my experience, that kind of works well.
Right. So you got the team without the hierarchy, and you got the difference between the roles and the designations in the organization.
Yeah. So you might have somebody junior in the team still leading it. So if he wants it, he actually wants to take things forward. Well, let's take it as a game. It's just fun. Yeah.
So was there any of the smells that you felt resonated particularly with the audience?
So what I try to do is see what is that works really well, and for what is it that resonated well with the audience. I need to think. I had a laugh right for what I think the testing pyramid story once we had, and one of them actually had shared that story.
I'd like to come back to that one later.
Yeah. So that was a good thing.
Right.
So it's more so because one of the person from the audience comes and shares the story, they feel even more glued to the process of learning.
That was the story of the three little pigs.
Yeah, three little piglets. Yeah.
Right. And what does it have to do with agile smells or agile software development?
So it's about the nice way of sharing the technical aspects. So more often than not, if you just say in points, say, okay, this is what you need to do, or this is what you should not do, it's hard to remember these things. It becomes like a checklist.
Right.
So psychologically, it works out well. You kind of present things in a lighter way. And this is something that Patrick Wilson Welch is a guy who kind of got this metaphor, and it's there in the book called Agile Testing by Lisa Crispin. So there's a reference to this. I come across this thing, and I had an opportunity to work with him personally, and I loved this idea. And I thought, okay, I'm going to present this story as well, and more so I wanted somebody from the audience to tell the story so that it kind of works out well. So now when they go back to their workplaces, they know it kind of works out well.
So the story was about, so the analogy was that you have the bricks, the wood, and
the haystack
layer of the testing, right?
Right.
Can you explain what's the brick layer of the testing?
So the bottommost layer of the pyramid is that of bricks, and the middle layer is that of a wooden stack, and the topmost is that of haystack. Now if you look at typical houses, the small houses even, you would see like the house is basically built around with bricks. Now houses also need windows. It's like windows or windows to the outside world, right? So that basically is made of wood. And now on top of the house, basically the ceiling, it could still be with some light material as well. And you can see a lot of houses that way. I'm not sure of Sri Lanka, but a lot of houses in India are that way.
And what does it have to do with software development?
A classic thing. These houses are still strong or good enough. They're long lasting. In software development, in similar lines, the unit testing or the strength of the project, and you get fastest feedback in your code from your unit tests. And the next thing is your integration tests, which is where you get to see the handshaking between different components works out well. And that's why I have kind of, and so from one component to the other component, it's the window. The interfaces are basically the window to the world.
And the wood,
right?
And the story.
Yeah, so that's where it's made of bricks.
Right.
And
of wood, right?
Sorry?
The integration tests are made of wood.
Or made of wood. Yeah. And the topmost thing is that of a haystack. And you pretty well know if the hay is one thing that's light and it just gets distorted and requires a lot of maintenance. So people who have got that light roofing, they know, it requires regular maintenance. So the more haystack, the broader it is, you have more pain
and
for you.
that's also the surface of the application.
Yeah, so in the context of an application, those are the GUI tests.
Right. There was one slide that I think you wanted to punish the audience, so you skipped a slide where you talked about, I think it talked about pairing on it.
Yeah, it's like pairing but not pairing kinds.
Yeah.
And the trick is this. So when you see that, speaking in a conference and connecting with an audience is a difficult bit. And people find, typically speaking, somebody sitting in the audience would feel a little stretched to stand up and even talk. So it's a little difficult to connect with them. And you take them, bring them to something interesting, tell them some interesting stories, they have their laughter, and then coerce them, you get them closer. And then when they're closer and then take another tough question they don't answer, you just have to skip those things just to make sure, okay, they then want to say, okay, I just want to know what he's up to, maybe I need to learn more.
So this would be a good chance for them to learn more. What would you have talked about if you hadn't skipped it?
So that is slow. So there are project teams where people work in silos and still call it as like pairing. So like essentially I was talking about collaboration between roles. So for instance, a developer and a tester can well collaborate. In a typical ideal agile world, when a developer says he's completed with a story, the way it works is he calls for a QA and a business analyst to make sure they come to his box and see kind of runs through the tests.
Right.
So they just want to run through whatever the acceptance criteria is, because at that point in time, maybe they might have a different thought process and check something else. And that means it's still a feedback for the developer. He's not even waiting a little more, say a day or two after, when a QA or a business analyst comes back and saying, hey, there's a bug in the story.
Right.
The trouble there is he has to switch the context from his current work to that, and so this kind of helps those. So which is why I bring about saying you need to collaborate more and more. Forget these the other stuff roles more.
And here you're talking about collaboration across different roles.
Across different roles.
Right.
So from my experience, I've written unit tests on the GUI automation test suites as well. So when I sit with them and start writing GUI automation script, I get their picture or their way of looking at things, and they get to see the language, the way I think from the perspective of a language. So there's a joke or there's actually a proverb that says, learning a language is useless unless you cannot think in the language way, especially when if for instance you worked on a compile time language and you work to a dynamic language, it's got a whole different, it's a paradigm shift in the way you think about solving problem. So it's similarly, so when you work on a development code base and you try writing an automation test suite, there is a paradigm shift. It really matters. So when you work with a developer, as a developer, if I work with a tester and write automation test suite, it brings a lot of learnings both to me as well as whoever tester I'm pairing with. So,
yeah, we've got the same experience there.
Yeah.
So what do you think of the conference?
Oh, the conference is fantastic. The Sri Lanka is fantastic. Colombo is fantastic. Conference is fantastic. I enjoyed working with, meeting with a ton of folks, and I hope I did not bore them with my talk.
I was there, and I was certainly not bored.
Okay.
So, is it your first time in Sri Lanka?
Yeah, this is my first time, and I'm planning to come in about 3-4 months' time for my vacation. Yeah.
Ah, right.
Yeah.
So, any plans for where to go?
Plans for, sorry?
Where do you plan to go when you come back?
So Sri Lanka, I think, is known for the nice wildlife national parks. So that's one thing that at least one of them is something that I wanted to visit. And the other thing is they've got nice seas, clean sea, coastal bays. So that's another thing that I wanted to pay a visit sometime. Yeah.
If you have a chance, I'd recommend you go to Sigiriya and visit.
Oh, thanks.
It's a brilliant place to go.
I'm going to ask you over a mail about all these.
Please
Sure.
do. All right, so are you ready for the lightning round?
I guess not, but yeah, I mean, if you have to go through, let's go through it.
All right, so for the lightning round, I'll ask Karthik a set of questions, and the objective is to answer as quickly as possible, and when you've answered, you will ring the bell. So
Okay.
do you want to try out the bell?
So even if I don't answer, if I click the bell, I mean, you're going to go to the next one, right?
Yes,
Okay.
probably.
Sweet of you. Okay.
Yes, or I might ask it again in different way.
Okay.
So do you want to try the bell?
Yep.
All right. What is the right length of a sprint?
Ideally 0. 1 every day is good, but I mean, start with 1 week sprint, if I would wish to say. Yeah. So, thanks.
What was the best talk at devday.lk?
I loved, I think I was moved by the closing keynote by a great speaker. It's very different. It's his life experience that he has shared in a very light and effective way. I was completely moved by that. Very inspiring. Very, very inspiring. Needless to say, Venkat's talk, he's been a guy I've been following for years, and I think trying to emulate in small ways. Yeah, that's my, thank you. I keep forgetting this.
Yes. Why do my demos suck?
Sorry?
Why do my demos suck?
Whose demos, by the way?
Well, I'm on a team, and we're running demos, and it's not working. Why not?
So I mean, it sucks. The one thing that people miss around is they generally have one person sit on a demo and then do it. That's one. That means the rest of the person takes it as a given that, okay, this is something that I'm not going to do anytime, so why bother learning, why bother knowing all these things? So that's one reason. The other reason is I think demos can be more interesting if it's run through like a typical user scenarios. Unfortunately, many of the demos that I come across when I see people run demos with garbage data and say, okay, this works, okay, this works. That's not the way a demo needs to be run. It needs to be run like a typical user scenario to make things interesting. Try catching out of some live character. Like in your demo, for instance, you talked about Chuck Norris, you talked about your own finding for your own name. So that makes things interesting and people can connect. Right, so when you talk about some names or something, live character, people will connect usually. So yeah.
How do I get started with pair programming?
Just pick on somebody and then start pairing. That's the way to go.
And what is the most important agile practice?
Every practice is important. Please don't miss on something unless it's really hurting you.
Thank you very much, Karthaik.
Thanks, my pleasure.